morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and disembodied hands, Quindy. Justin and John, who are here only in spirit. And then, are you coming? Everybody wants to see you. Kiki! Giant monster dog. Oh, do you like my lotion? Yes, it smells like lemon. Yes, it does. Good girl. Good girl. Yeah, I wouldn't do coffee on an upset stomach for sure. For sure, because it's acidic. Yeah, Papa. Yeah. Oh, Papa. Papa. Giant-headed Papa. Hello, everybody. Hello. Oh, I'm getting leans. I'm getting a leany Kiki. Leany Kiki. Mwah. I love you too. All right, baby girl. She's like, but I want to paw you again. I want to give you a hug. Hi. Good girl. Okay, good girl. No nibbles. Oh my. Sometimes we have a regression to the nibbling state. Okay, you got your bully state. Good girl. All right. Yeah, no nibbles though. All right, pretty girl. Yep, she has Disney princess eyeballs. They're like very large and round when she opens them, but then they're very big and dark. They're not Puss in Boots' eyes quite, but you know, they could get there. But yeah, I would say if you don't feel good, give your gut a rest and don't eat. That's just my experience. Because I always feel like I have to put something in my stomach to calm it down when I'm like getting gastro crap, and then it backfires on me. So she's a good girl. Kiki is a good, sweet, friendly girl. Yesterday, our dog sitter came for the first time to take Kiki for a walk and meet her and meet me and see the house and get introduced to everything. So this is our house sitter who's going to be taking care of Kiki when we go on our honeymoon, delayed honeymoon to Hawaii in October. So yes. So it was cool. He and I totally vibed. So I'm like, I feel good about having this guy taking care of our house and our dog. So that was probably the best case outcome. So I'm very happy. Oh, fine. Like she's always a little bit like dancy around, doesn't want like strangers to pet her around the head, especially. She's a little head shy when she meets people. And she woofed at him a lot because he was a stranger in our house. But then once we put the leash on and went for the walk, then she was fine having him pet her everywhere. Like he was just like scruffling her all over. And she's good. She did recalls and obedience for him and all sorts of stuff. So she obviously felt comfortable with him and he liked her and liked our house. And so it's all good. Yep. Kiki sitter. Yep. Yeah, I found him on Rover. I just looked. I like Rover because you've got the social proof. So you've got a lot of people reviewing the sitters. And he was one of the more established ones, and he's in Mountain View, so he's like right in our town, which is great. So he knows the area, he knows the dog parks, he knows, all the stuff, and so I feel very good about having him take care of her for a week. And he's a really good communicator. He has a real job. He's actually a consultant. This is really funny because we sit there and we were talking about, I asked him what he did, and he was mentioning how structured, like, shepherd owners are just really always really good about leaving him extensive notes on the dog's routine. And I'm like, that's totally got to be because shepherd owners need to have, like, to raise a shepherd, you need structure. If you don't have a structured environment, if you are not willing to lay down ground rules, you are not going to get a great shepherd. So experienced shepherd owners, I think, are very structured people. But that's apparently what he does is he works with startups around the Bay Area, and essentially he's an organization guy. So he comes in and helps them with structuring their business. So since that's a work from home dig and he loves dogs, it's like easy for him to do, and he's good with them. So he just does the dog stuff on Rover for extra cash, but he seems pretty cool. Because even if you're working as a like tech consultant, you still making an extra $1,000 for watching people's dogs over a whole week is not a bad gig. Alrighty, let's get on Mellonir. But yeah, I like him a lot. So I would say, and our neighbor also had luck on using Rover to find a dog sitter for her little dog. Though that dog sitter had Pearl, actually brought Pearl to their own home to care for her while they were gone. So you can find anything you need. But yeah, so as long as this all works out good, but he seems really like good as far as like having a clue. All right, so we were mixing saddle brown and tan skin to get this kind of muted color, and then remember we made a card. It's a good thing we made a card because I would have forgotten all of this. But those are the colors we're looking at for our selection of greens for him. And I think I'm going to put off choosing a hair color until we have more colors down. Because sometimes it's best, even if you have a good idea, it's best to get the other colors in place before you make that final call on hair color. Alrighty. I usually like to go dark with the cloak because it makes more sense, and lighter with the cloth. So I'm thinking we're going to do kind of a traditional thing. What we're doing is we'll also finish out the skin today, but, need is such a strong word in our, you can always use another elf. But what we'll do is, since we're using all these colors to highlight and shade each other, but we'll also like use them as colors themselves. So we'll use 9082, we'll use Leaf Bud Green, and we'll use this lighter mix of Boggart and Osirian with a little bit of Leaf Bud in it, probably to brighten Boggart up a little. But we'll use all these colors, and so I'll probably do I like dark colors on the cloak because usually a model like this is going to want to hide in the woodlands, so they wouldn't put their brightest color on or their lightest color on the outside cloak. So I'd go 9082 for the cloak. I'd probably have this, you could go either way. You could use the off-white green to do the outer garment and the brighter green on the inner and the sleeves, or you could do the opposite and go with the Leaf Bud Green on the outer and then the off-white on the inner. I tend to like the off-white on the inner a little bit more because I don't want to necessarily go really light all down here because it'll pull attention away from the face. So, I mean, this is what I do all the time, Slayer, because I work on so many models for the stream. We're always working on 6 models at once, and we do a daily rotation. But by the time I come back around 6 days later, I'm not going to remember, right? So I always, especially, unless I'm doing something like standard, like if I'm using just straight up tan skin for a skin tone, I'm going to be able to look at it and know what I used. But when I'm doing these weird mixes, like with saddle brown, which I normally would not use to mix with tan skin, then it's good to have the card. And I just keep the card, essentially I put the card right under the miniature on the shelf so that I always have it right next to the mini, and then I know. So yeah, because a lot of times when we first start a model, we're trying to figure out what colors we want to do. So yeah, and I may go for a really brassy gold on this one for the NMM, really kind of greenish to fall in with the Wood Elf stuff. Kind of go like almost single chroma on this one, like very much strong with the greens. We will do some leather, and that's where I may duck some red in. A very reddish leather goes very well with green color schemes, because complementary colors. So we'll do that maybe. I'll go with the question is the pants. Will I go light? Probably will, because normally I do darker green with the pants, but we've got the cape right behind it, so we really can't do that or we'll lose the knees entirely. He'll be like floating. It'd be like a wraith floating above his boots. So we'll probably need to do, remember we alternate light, dark, and mid if we want everything to show up nicely. So we're going dark, mid, light, dark, mid, and it's mid down here, light, and then dark, mid, light, and then probably dark again, unless we go with a medium leather, which we could. We could even use the browns that we're using to mix in with his skin tones. Nut brown has a little bit of a purplish hue, shadow brown is a little bit red, or saddle brown, sorry. So they would work, but we can think about that as we go. And then his hair, I don't know. We could go really with a whole lot of things, depending. We could go red or blonde or black or some entirely weird other color. I'm thinking about it. So, and like I said, I will hold off on the hair, making a hair decision until I have the main bulk of the other colors worked in. So with that said, let us try to highlight up our skin tones a bit because we only have them blocked in and shaded. So, no, you wouldn't want to. Leather colors for me, Polly, are always like neutrals or complements. So doing the greenish leather to me would be jarring because if you're it's like, for one thing, out of 28, good luck making it look like leather. So it'll just be another green thing. If I did the boots in green, it would just be green. But it wouldn't balance out the figure very well. Like, there is such a thing as too much green. I don't know if I want purple on this figure, Pendrake, but it's a possibility. If I did purple, though, I would only do black with purple highlights. But then that might not fit the rest of my color scheme. So, but yeah, I don't find that colored leathers work very well at 28 because usually if you want a leather to be colored, you want to be able to show that it's leather rather than cloth or something else. And that means putting texture on it. And it's very hard to do a good leather texture on a 28. It tends to, that's what we were talking about here with Mouse, where we're doing that leather texture up on his hat, and it works great, but that's because he's huge. His hat is as big as this whole figure. So it works because it's large. But doing a leather texture on like boots or something, a lot harder at 28 millimeter. And like I said, the leather for me is an opportunity to round out the color scheme, not double down on it. So boots and belts and stuff like that for me are usually going to be neutrals, or they're going to be complementary color neutrals, like a reddish brown leather for a green figure or an orangish brown leather for a blue figure, things like that. I don't want the leather to blend in. I don't want the leather to blend in with all the other colors. That's the danger that you come up with if you ask if you want to do the same sort of color scheme with your leather. Is then it just becomes yet another like green thing in a whole forest of green things, right? So that's the thing, and it's like I said, this green leather. The only thing that differentiates a green leather from like green cloth on a 28 millimeter would be if you could somehow introduce texture, which is very difficult on a model this small. Pardon me, I just noticed that I have some little bumpies back here. No bumpies allowed. But yeah, so I am not a fan, and this is purely me, so like if you want to go against me here, by all means, feel free. But I am not a fan of colored leather. I think that more natural dyes for leather are much cooler than trying to do like a blue leather or a green leather. Just doesn't excite me. I think it's hard to make it look good, and you're throwing away an opportunity to put a neutral on the model. And I like neutrals. I use a lot of neutrals on my models. I feel like they provide a really nice counterpoint to the bright colors on the model, or the more saturated, usual stronger colors on the model. And I find that for me, a model needs that balance. I have a hard time liking models that do not have a balance of neutrals in addition to their stronger colors. But again, that's just me. So if you want to try to do a green leather, that's cool. Just keep in mind that like analogous color schemes like can be boring. So if you are going to do that, if you are going to go and double down on everything green, cool. But you really need to go with like dark, medium, light. Like you need a lot of variance in your shade if you're going to do that. And make sure that you don't push like an olive green onto a bright green and things like that, because then it's going to clash. Usually it would be like stretch leather or wood, Pendrake. So usually I do wood grain on the back of shields. Which fits great for a wood elf, so I won't decide on color until I'm further along. But usually I will go dark because there's no features here to bring out. It's just there. It's just kind of a circle. So I don't want to paint it anything interesting, light, bright, or warm, because then it's big, right? It's going to pull your eye straight to it. So that's why I almost always go dark with this sort of thing. And if I do wood grain, it's very subdued, because you still want the main focus of action to be here. You don't want to be just staring at the shield. That's always when you kick yourself as a painter, is when you do some cool tile floor effect or something, and all everybody wants to remark on is, oh, I love the floor. And never mind the figure that you spent so much time painting. So beware of the floor effect. Well, I did like that, yeah, because I decided, and the reason I did that is because the cat itself couldn't be green, right? There was no other green on that model. Like, there was no other place for it, really. There was no other place for a color. So yes, the exception will be is if a model is in armor that is leather, and I decide I want it to be colored leather, then I'm gonna just paint it as if it is, right? And just rock with that. And yeah, then you would just go with that. But the rest of the cat was very neutral, so because that was Grumpy Cat, and Grumpy Cat was gray, as I recall. Whereas you know, I made the orange tabby is the paladin with plenty of like metal armor. Because I wouldn't want to put like orange leather on an orange tabby. Like, that would be too much. So yeah, I very rarely do colored. And you know what? The thing, when I do that, I guess with the rogue, you know it's leather. It's boiled leather stretched over plates. So you just kind of interpret it that way. But you know, I also like, I'll sometimes do colored metal as if it were lacquered or enameled or whatever. But yeah, again, it's rare and it depends on the figure. And sometimes I'm just straight up doing fantasy, like when I put red armor on vampires. Straight up. All right, let's see. Need my highlight color. Tan skin. And a little bit of saddle brown, but I think I'm going to go with even less saddle brown for the highlight. We did a 3 to 4 saddle brown, so almost a 1 to 1 to get his base skin tone, because I wanted it just a little darker. But let's see what we can do here. We might redo that and then just mix the highlight by adding in some bleached linen or Osirian sand. So I guess I will start with 4 drops of tan skin, 3 drops of saddle brown. Saddle brown is this funky color. Yeah. It's not my preference, but on something like that where you are painting brown or gray fur, the same thing would be true like on an armored wolf or something like that, or werewolf, is I would be tempted to make the plates colors then, because it's the only place you can. Otherwise, you're going to have a very boring all neutrals model, which I don't like any better than I like the all green model. So I like, when it comes down to it, I like using complementary colors, or I like using primary or secondary triad colors, and so I'll figure out pretty quick how I want to run that on any given model. Alrighty, I'm going to mix up my base, and then I'm going to figure out what to add to it to build a highlight for the skin. But yeah, normally on 28s, I don't reach for colored leather per se. I like, but then you guys know I'm much more prefer like a naturalistic look, and that even is in my real life. Like if I had a chance to take if I was purse shopping and I had a choice between a red or blue leather purse or a natural like dark brown or black leather purse, you know, like those are dyed, but they're dyed more neutral. I'll pick the neutral every day, like no question. All right, so I need to warm this up a little bit going into the highlight. I think I will reach for Osirian sand. Creamy ivory is also a good option when you really are getting something that's pretty cold, all things considered. There's a bit of black in that saddle brown, so it definitely adds a grayish tone. So I'm going to put a drop of Osirian sand, which of course is a lovely Pathfinder color. That's a very, very yellow off-white. I kind of see how that comes up a bit. So that brought it up. It didn't warm it much. And so one thing I would consider doing is putting another drop of tan skin in to pull it a little bit warmer. Boop. You can see that a little bit more yellowish. Yeah, that's better. I want my highlights to be a bit warmer. Yeah, so there we go. We can see a pretty good difference between these, which we want when we're doing skin tones at 28. So I'm finishing up my Red Pigments Patreon PDF for the $5 tier, and I was researching a bunch of pigments. Researching the pigments I didn't know anything about, like the toluidine wet red that the Chimera people used. And I'm like, why did you use this color? And so I looked it up, and I was like, oh, interesting. So there's some interesting factoids in there. For those who are on my Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig, and on the $5 tier, which is probably my $10 tier is actually the most popular, possibly because it gives you a ton of value, but $5 tier is second most popular because it's all about colors. And muddy. All right, then if they look muddy, you might be using colors with too much black in them, or not going lighter and warmer with your highlights. I don't know what you mean really by muddy, Slayer. So what I've done already is I've base coated with my standard color, and then I shaded a little bit with a nut brown mixture into it. So the shadow under the cheekbone is a nut brown, which is a kind of darker and purpler than shadow brown, or saddle brown rather. So you need to address, actually he has a really easy to paint face because you can see exactly where the light is falling. It's going to fall on the forehead, on the top of the cheekbone, the nose, the upper lip, and the chin. And like, that's it. So we have thinned our paint a bit so that it's not going to be blocky. And it'll come off our brush really well. And I'm using a brush with a really fine point. As you can see, this is my Winsor Newton Series 7, size 0. I also use Da Vinci, Maestro a lot, and Raphael. I've just been on a kick with this brush because it's just living next to my painting area, so I just grab it. But any of those, and you can see that color coming in and see how it lightens that up. I don't want to cover over all of my base color. I want to make this a smaller area if I can, so I keep the highlights on the cheekbones close to the eye. I'm trying not to cover up. You don't have to get great with blending. Be great with blending on 28mm faces because if you're doing different areas, I actually did the nostrils because why not? Always do the bridge of the nose. But because on a surface this small, blending is like just kind of wasted. If you put colors next to each other, they'll look like blending. Yeah, it's a good rugged face. Agreed, green users. Yeah, and I'll go up higher than this, Slayer. If by muddy you mean features aren't standing out, then knocking your shadows down and bringing your highlights up is the way to make everything stand out. It's all about contrast on miniature painting, no matter what you're painting. No matter what area or what surface, it's all about contrast. And for contrast, you got to put darks next to lights. So you got to use a range of shades. Get a little bit of the highlight here. If this was a bust, we'd have a shadow right under the nose, but on 28s, there's just not enough of an upper lip to really do that. So I usually just highlight a little bit there. I'm going to highlight around the mouth because this muscle grouping is getting the light. And I mean, having thinner paint and you know, a good brush is really intrinsic to painting good faces. Get the chin. Because you need that control to bring the features out. David asked me if I would get a tomato plant, and I hissed and you know, booed at him because of course they're evil. They're poison to ants. If he wants a tomato plant, he has to take care of it, which means he's never getting a tomato plant. Then there's a little muscle group right to the lower bottom of the lower edge of the mouth, which if you're feeling like especially pro, you could highlight with its own little dot of highlight, so that will give you a more realistic result. So you can see the big difference now between the base color on the hands and actually bringing out the face. This is just yet another example of how you can use tan skin and add a different brown to it just to make things a little bit different. But it still works as a skin tone. It's just such a versatile skin tone. So tan skin 9044 is its item number. One of the first colors I created for Reaper Master Series back in the day, and still one of my absolute favorites. And if I don't want to think too hard about a skin tone, it's what I always use. A little bit of highlight there. And then we'll do one more highlight as well. I like to have at least 4 steps on your average face. If it's competition level, I will go to 5 on a 28 millimeter. And by 4 steps, I mean we have our base coat, we have at least 1 level of shadow, and we have 2 levels of highlights. So on top of this, I'll go up to almost an off-white and pop up a skin just that bit more to make it really stand out and show how the light is falling on it. Yesterday was a very energy sapping day. I'm hoping today is going to be better. I'm very sore today because I went out last night and I mentioned to you guys that I wanted to do some high intensity impact stuff, and so I did 2 sprints last night in the middle of my walk. And by sprints I mean all out, like going as fast as I could possibly go. I haven't run that fast since I was probably in grade school. It was weird. I wasn't sure I could still do it. It was weird, but I can, it turns out. I can actually. And my knees were actually okay afterwards. Although my hip sockets were a little sore this morning. So it's like, I am older, but I did it. And so I was like, well, at least I can still do it. At least I can still run. It's supposed to do good things for your cardio, health, and endurance. So and the whole reason I'm doing this again is that we're going in July to David's parents in Washington, Seattle area, and we're going to go to Mount Rainier and hike. So even though it seems weird to be doing running sprints in prep for that, it actually does help with your endurance. And I want to be able to keep up on the trails because I'm always so slow. I'm sick of being slow. Sword has a what? Oh, you're in Texas. Like, Texas has a whole population of bugs, a kingdom of bugs that target every garden that's out there. It's evil. I never had any luck. Well, yeah, you got to know your fitness level, right, Pendrake? So that's the thing. It's not like I'm doing sprints out of nowhere. I walk every day, and I've been introducing jogging into my walking now for a couple months. So, and I'm also like not super overweight anymore. So, I mean, a lot of people, I wonder what they're thinking when they try to, yeah, they do try to do this stuff and they're like totally out of shape. It's like, you can't just go 0 to 100 or your body will punish you. But I've been working up to this, so. I'll only do it, like, I'm planning to do the sprints, like, every, like, 3 times a week as part of my walk. We'll see if it helps. I won't even know until we probably go to the park, but, oh, fuller. Yes, it does. I like swords that are like that, actually, because it gives a little extra detail to highlight when you're doing NMM. All right, I wanted to get my lining out because I was feeling like I was losing maybe a little bit of it around my highlights. I wanted to make sure I could correct things if I accidentally painted them over. But this is looking okay. I'm going to mix one more highlight. pop this on. There we go. He has pretty sharp ridges on the back of his hand, you know, like you do. So I don't put shadows there, but I do bring the highlights up over the base coat. Yeah, exactly, Age Marvel. I don't do my sprints until I've walked like almost 10 minutes at a decent pace. I don't really need that much of a warm up, but just to be safe. But yeah, I worked up to this. I've never really wanted to be a runner or anything, but it does helps get my heart rate up, and that actually helps with my overall, like, just how I feel. Is to work out at a decent rate. Because just walking is fine, but I do tend to sleep better if I throw a little bit of jogging or some sort of a little bit of higher intensity exercise in there. And right now my sleep has not been that great. I think because I'm looking at, you know, my month full of deadlines, it tends to raise my stress level just a little bit. I don't take her, Pendrake. The evening walks are my walks. Kiki gets her walk with me in the middle of the day. She is not, she is still too much of a handful for me to, like, have her with me if I'm doing this. I really need solitary time, and I take it in the evening. And that means solitary means no dogs, not worrying about any other living thing except me. So sometimes I feel mildly guilty, but I really don't, because when I walk past the park, there are always some dogs out there running in the field, and if I had Kiki with me, she'd be pulling me off my feet trying to get to those dogs, and I just don't need that. Like, much as I love my animal, I need a break every once in a while too. So that's my evening. My evening walk is only Anne. And I do a lot of thinking about my novel and everything when I do that walk too, and I need to be able to stop and dictate and not worry about the dog pulling me while I am doing that. So yeah, no Kiki. It's not necessary to take Kiki everywhere. Although she would love it if I did. So highlight. Just a little bit of highlight at the very top of the brow there. Don't need one here because the hair is over this part of the brow, so I don't want the strongest light to be there. So just really getting that right where the part is, because that's where the light is going to fall down. Oh, and to show you what I mixed here, we just popped more Syrian sand into it. So I've got, these are my 3 as my triad at this point. You can see there's quite a bit of difference between them than there should be. If you were doing a larger face, like a bust, where you needed smooth blends, I would probably be doing more transitions, or I would be thinning my paint more. You have those 2 choices if you're trying to get a smooth blend. You can either do more intervals between the main colors, or you can thin more and work with really thin paint and building it up in multiple layers. Of the 2, the second one is more difficult. So just the tip of the nose there. That said, Pendrake, I am also doing this so that I can get in shape for maybe running Kiki in the ring at the National Dog Show. It won't be very much running, but with big dogs, you have to move them pretty fast. So that's part of the aim of running. So just for the highest highlight, it's just a little line right under the eye. So I can still have the transitions. And then just a little bit the corner of the mouth. I'm not going to go over the entire, or I'm not going to touch the upper lip under the nose. But just getting those corners where the muscles are bunching, and that helps bring that expression out. Yeah, eventually I'll have to teach Kiki to trot alongside of me when I'm moving faster, but I will do that on our midday walk. Yeah. A little bit, again, just a little line or dot on top of the chin to bring that out. Another place you want to highlight, and I'll go back to my previous highlight here for this one, is you do want to get it a little bit here on the line of the jaw. Just a little bit to bring that out. And I have been highlighting the ears as well. Oh, that was way too messy. Yeah, I don't think I could do sprints with Kiki. Come to think of it, she'd probably be like tripping me, which is then I would get hurt. I'm just imagining Kiki trying to do. She'd be so excited. She'd be like, "We're gonna play," and then she would dodge in front of me, and it would be a horrible train wreck. Big crash. Much yelping and tumbling. All right, and this side of the cheekbone, I'm probably not putting that much light on because, again, the hair is very close to the face here. So it gets one highlight, but it may not get both highlights. You don't have to put all of your highlights everywhere. And if you find that your highlights get a little pasty or what they call chalky, then what you want to do is you want to go to one of your more deeper colors, possibly this one, but maybe that one, and do a glaze over the top, and it'll erase the chalkiness. The chalkiness is usually an over-thinning thing, so it's either an over-thinning thing or you've gone too dramatically different and you've got putting a color with a lot of white over it or in it over the top of a color without it can make a chalky appearance. Not quite the same thing. Most chalkiness is over-thinning. All right, there we go. So that's come up actually really nicely. We're getting a lot of contrast. It's definitely a different skin tone. It's a more muted skin tone, which is not bad at all. But yeah, that's pretty good. I'll get the whites of his eyes put in. There we are. Yeah, I'll just do a 4-to-1 on the initial eyeball. And I do want to make it a little less white. I have to plant speaking of plants, I need to repot my new pepper plants. I have an Anaheim pepper and a bell pepper that I bought at the garden center on Sunday, and I have a nice pot for them, and I'm excited to get them into it. So as usual, I'm using like a cairn stone mixed with a little bit of white, also weathered stone. Any grayish color works well for eyeballs. You may want to add some white if it's not really an off-white, but you don't want too light. It's going to stand out really weird if you do. So I'm doing cairnstone with a couple of brushfuls of white in it, and it's kind of a greenish color, but that's not gonna show up on the skin tone. It's that one right there. Cairnstone is a Pathfinder color, which I actually use a lot now, so I keep it up on my painting table all the time. Chapman, there are two philosophies, of how you start a model. And we've actually done it differently. Here, I've got 2 models here that I've done differently. So one philosophy is to paint the areas that cover most of the surface first. And that's this. So like the painting of the dress, the blue and the off-white, the blue and the cream are very much like covering the majority of the model. So you can start like that, and that's just fine. Painting skin first is a technique that's called painting from the inside out, where essentially you're painting the deepest layer first, and then you work out from there, like out to the hair and the shirt, and then you go to the cape and stuff like that. And yes, the philosophy behind that is that if you paint the face first, then you don't have to try to get into that recessed area after you've painted everything all around it and maybe mess that area up. What you do have to do is you have to be a little careful when you're painting like the hair and the areas close to the face, so that you're not too messy with it. So choose the technique that works for you. Both of those techniques are perfectly valid. And painters do it. I do it differently depending on what the model is, usually. I'll just like kind of choose which way I want to run it. Most often though, I start with skin first. Because I tend to paint the skin and kind of it helps me get an idea like what version of other colors I might use. If like I'm doing a non-standard skin tone, then I want to see how that looks. Like here, this is kind of, like I said, a muted out skin tone. It's not very warm. And that can determine colors that I use next to it that may or may not look good. Like I would not use a really bright color on this model with this skin tone. But like then I've got another model over here where we're starting really red, really kind of a sunburned color. It's our other wood elf that we're just started working on. And that's just a base color. But like that skin tone is going to be very different from this one. And the colors of green that I use on her are going to be very different also because of that. So sometimes I like to get the skin tone down just to get a better idea of what colors, like if I know I'm going to paint the model red, there are all sorts of different reds that could go with it. And I'll kind of work based on what the skin tone looks like. It may influence my choice. Not always. Some skin tones are just really neutral. Anyway, but that's the thought process. But yeah, a lot of people do inside out. A lot of people do skin first, but it's not necessary. And then there's the, thing where you might base coat everything, but maybe you don't get to the skin for a while, right? That's what I did on this. Given he doesn't have really a standard skin tone, but that's what I did on Anubis. Like the skin was actually the last thing I painted on Anubis. Was the dog skin. But I knew it was going to be a similar color to the cape because I wanted to repeat those colors, and I wanted a dark, blackish, grayish skin. So yeah. So it just depends. Sure. Nice, Twistodoma. Yeah, I'm happy with getting, they were out of bell pepper plants the last time I went, and I really would like one, so we eat red bell pepper a lot. And I like, out of all the hot peppers, I like the Anaheim and the jalapeno best, so those are the two plants we have. And our jalapeno plants is growing peppers. Like, it's got tiny little peppers on it now, so I'm very excited. I need to water it again tonight. I need to give it some fertilizer. I got some fruit and vegetable fertilizer, so it's more tuned to what they need. Okay, so now we got all this done. Let us actually start blocking in some green. We are using one of my favorite colors that we haven't used, which is Jungle Moss. Where's my Jungle Moss? No, that is not my Jungle Moss. You are not my Jungle Moss either. Hey, Jungle Moss. I'm very grumbly. Did I leave it up here? Jungle Moss, you are not permitted to run away. Hold on. This is where all my silliness... There we are. It was hiding at the front. Jungle Moss. So it's a muted dark green, but it's not nearly as muted as something like Ancient Oak. Where if you look at it, you can see that Ancient Oak is more grayish. See? So Jungle Moss still has a decent amount of vibrancy to it, but it's a little more muted than something like Pine Green, which is really more like a Dark Angels Green. If you're familiar with GW colors, you can see how this is a little grayer than that, and this is a bit grayer than that. So if you were to line them all up, you can kind of see that transition. But these are similar, it's just this one's a little bit more grayed out. It's also a little more blue. And this is bluer yet and grayer yet. So these are all dark greens. They're all, of them all, this is the warmest and brightest one. For most vibrant one is pine green. We are not using that one. We are using more muted colors. So, jungle moss and leaf bud green, which is a Kickstarter color that came out that I really am fond of. And then boggart and Osirian. The boggart I'm going to have to kind of mess with a little bit here and there because it's a little gray compared to the others. But I think it's going to make a good base for off-white mixed with the Osirian. I think it's going to work just fine. So maybe I'll put a little leaf bud in it to make it a little more vibrant. So that's those are our colors. And I'm going to be shading and highlighting them with each other so that I'm not reaching for totally different greens to shade and highlight each of those greens. Instead, I'm going to use themselves as shaders and highlighters. So leaf bud will highlight the jungle moss, and jungle moss will shade the leaf bud, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I've never heard of those, Twisted Oma. I do love Anaheims, and I wouldn't mind having a poblano plant because I like them for color in chili, which I actually want to make soon. So we'll see. I don't think my jalapenos are going to be ready to totally make chili, but sadly, we're also doing burgers this week, and normally we put a jalapeno on the burger, but I'm pretty sure our jalapenos are too tiny to be sacrificed for the burger. Although I should pick one up when I go to the store. Yeah. There I am. There. Yeah, David likes sauteed jalapenos on his burgers. Okay, let's move this guy out of the way. Yeah, I'm liking, my mom said I should get a raised bed, but I'm not sold on it yet. I'll try my pot plants. I'll try doing pots. Then maybe we'll think about a raised bed next year. And then we can put all of our food plants in one place. I don't mind having herbs in pots. I kind of prefer them in pots, actually. All right, glasses. And let's get this jungle moss on here and see how it works. Hey, Lady Nim. Welcome back. Good to see you. 19 months. Sweet. Yeah. No, there's a reason, Slayer. There used to be. Okay, we stopped doing it, though. So it used to be that core MSP, core colors, had white caps and Reaper Bones and Pathfinder had black. However, we've had more problems with the black caps. So at one point, Ed made the call that we weren't going to order black anymore. And we we're just going to run through our existing stock and then everything was going to be white. Which is a shame because I thought the black looked good, but we would sometimes have problems with the molding process with those caps, with them aging too fast or being brittle. And so yeah, it used to be that it was core was white and everything else was black, but not anymore. As far as I know. Unless that changed, because, you know, I haven't worked at Reaper headquarters for 3 years at this point, so things change at Reaper. I can never speak with certainty. But that used to be the difference. And all my paints, well, most of my paints are from that period of time when we were still doing that. So that is the thing. So yeah, we used them at first to help delineate differences of line, but yep. You'll find a lot of paint lines do that. Like if it's a different type of, like a wash versus a regular, you know, color in the line, they'll put a different cap color on it. We never did that, but yeah. But they're really pretty pots, Pendrake. These are not like cheapo plastic herb pots. These are like the really nice, like hand-thrown ceramic pots. I would not want to bury them in dirt. because I originally was not going to get a raised bed, so instead I got very attractive pots because I like having attractive pots. Oh yeah, my lemon tree is really happy right now. A lemon fell off of it yesterday, so I need to harvest. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Supply issue as well. Because the black lids weren't ordered as much as the white lids, so the company didn't keep them in stock. All right, it's this beautiful, beautiful jungle moss color, which I just love, and I'm so happy to be using it again. As you can see, it's not as dark as it looks in the bottle. It has some stuff in common with, say, an olive-y color, but it's not quite an olive. Just a muted green. I really find it a lovely color, though. I think it's a very pretty color. Kiki is fine. You missed her. She always makes an appearance at the start of the show. She's a good girl. In general. She's having some regression here and there where she wants to get mouthy again. But that's just because she's still a puppy. She's just an older puppy now. Otherwise, though, she met her new dog sitter yesterday, and they both did great, Lady Nim. Because we needed a dog sitter for when we go to Hawaii. Yes, Kiki is an angel at the beginning of today's VOD. She only starts to like try to nom on me once she's back on the floor. But she's otherwise a good girl. But yeah, I mean, compared, I think she's a sweetie. She's a sweetie dog. She was a Tasmanian devil when she was a puppy, but she's gone beyond that, thank God. Let's get the dark green in here. And I haven't decided yet if we're going to do an accent color. Like, we have two scabbards here. We've got a hilt that's showing. We don't have a lot of other possibilities for accents. But we could do some freehand or a border or something if we wanted to. So we can think about doing an accent color that's different from our green color scheme if we want to give a different color to the scabbards and the hilt of the dagger, or of the sword. On the back, obviously, we've got the shield, and we've got the quiver. We've got the bow, which we could totally add a color to, stuff like that. So we can think about an accent color on this model. Yes, the adult brain cells are very good. Like, as she has gotten the adult brain cells, she's gotten much more. Oh, that's right. I totally missed that mold line, or that flash piece. Hold on. I'm going to still block this green in, but then I'm going to go in with my knife. I totally forgot that we missed that on the boots, and Twisted Number reminded me last week. There's a little fin of flash on the back of this boot that I totally missed. It's very invisible. She's gentle until she gets riled up. And then she just wants to play, and her adult brain cells go out the window. But in general, she's a very good girl. She's not the goodest girl yet, but she's a good girl. So I'm just getting my knife in here to kind of take that out. Try to shave it off as much as I can. Luckily, Bones USA reacts really well to this. There we go. Yeah, yep. Yeah, you can do that. Although I find that it sometimes backfires, Twisted Oma. Because sometimes the plants are more vulnerable to disease. But yeah, people do it. Just like they graft different roses, like, onto the same bush. We have a separate, we used to have a lime tree, but it was dying, so I got rid of it. We have a lemon and an orange. The orange needs just more water. It's up in a, it was not planted in a smart space. It was planted in a space with a lot of deserty plants in it. So the water sprayers are not positioned great for it, and it doesn't get a lot of water up there the way that works. So I have to give it extra water. And they should be, it's just pulling energy from the same tree as the other fruits, but it shouldn't affect the taste. I really like that there's tons of fruit trees around here and that we have one. I like our lemon tree. Pretty happy with the lemon tree. We would eat more. We eat more lemons than we do. We use more lemons than we do oranges or limes anyway. I also need to get an avocado and a lime today, because if we're having burgers, then we need guacamole with the burger. For those who have never had guacamole on a burger, you should try it. Trust me. All right, so we've got our dark greens. See how lovely that green is? Like, I will need, you can see it's a little thin. I've thinned it a bit. I'm going to have to put a second coat on, but that's fine. Usually when you do an accent color, Pendrake, you actually reach for a color, not a neutral. So by accent, I'm not so much like saying a visual, like, visual weight, which doing a dark band or a dark design, for example, would give it. But usually you want to use, with an accent color, you're actually reaching for a slightly punchier color, like a red or an orange. Or a bright blue, but on this model, I don't know. Yeah, you could. Depends. And it's usually I wait to figure out what an accent color suggests itself after I've dealt with the main colors that I know I want on the figure and seen how those have come out. Then I will consider an accent. I may veer off totally from an accent idea though, and just use the reddish leather as an accent to set off the green. It's something that I don't decide until later. I like being somewhat impulsive, or at least like listening to my gut on color choices when it comes down to like accents or accents, leather colors, things like that. Uh-oh, I hear a papa. What's up out there, papa? I think she's just sleeping. It's gonna get hot soon. Oh, I see. Yeah, that would be more like a freehand accent. So it'd still be a visual accent, but it just wouldn't introduce color. Usually when you're doing an accent color, you're choosing either a color that's part of your triad. So if you're in a secondary triad, like this will be green, orange, purple, then maybe you use orange. Usually you use a brighter, just to kind of punch the color a little bit. Or you use a complementary, because if you use the complementary color, it'll make this green look more intense. So if I use red, then it would bring the green out. But I can do that same thing with just using reddish leather, so I don't necessarily need to. Oh no, allergic. Oh, that's terrible. That's awful. I'm so sorry, Lady Nim. Avocado's so tasty. So sorry. I have a reaction to tomatoes, so, you know, I feel the food intolerance things are very bad. It's very sad for us. I wonder what it is in avocados. Do you know specifically what it is about the avocado? Because that's really interesting that you would have a reaction to them. But then there are people who react to nightshades, so. Is that because you can't drink tequila? Or did you have agave syrup and it didn't agree with you, Pendrake? So I'm putting my second coat on over that, and you notice how it darkens it. You can see the second coat there, and you can see the first coat there. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if it doesn't make you feel good, then don't eat it. That's for sure. I do really like this green. It's going to be a good rich green, and I may put it on the shield as well. Whereas the quiver will probably go with either an accent color or a brighter, like the leaf bud green. And then the bottom part of this cloak, which is just like a big mass of solid, we're just going to grab our brown liner and just block it in. I can mix a little dark green with it if I want to, but really we just want to encourage people not to look at it. So we will paint it a dark color, because it's only there as an artifact of the molding process. So we got that dark. Yeah, maybe it's just the flavor of it that you don't like if it's plain, but you like it when it has the spices in it, Richard. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of just avocado's flavor either, although I'll put it over. I like it sliced on eggs, but only if I've got like tomatillo salsa to go over the top of it, because that helps give it more flavor. But yeah, just regular, nothing else in it avocado, unless it's, you know, mixed in with other stuff. I'm not a big fan. Plain avocado, so to speak. But I love it, and like any application where it's mixed in with other things, I absolutely love it. So yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Yep, we paint things that aren't really there. Yep, we do that. That's for sure. Yeah, that there could be some just some compounds in tequila, yeah, that just do not react well with you, Pendrake. It's good that you noticed. At least it's an isolated enough thing that you were able to notice it. That's how I found out about tomatoes, is like, I would never have found out except that I used to drink V8 a fair amount because I actually like it, or liked it. And I would always feel not great. It got to the point where I was not feeling great when I drank it. So then I started to be more conscious of how I was reacting to tomatoes in general, and realized eventually that it was a problem. So I stopped. And now if I have even like a beef stew that somebody else has made, because a lot of people put tomatoes in beef stew to give it a more of a savory umami hit, my stomach will start acting up. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. It's whatever they have in common with latex. Interesting. The weirdest things about food come up when you have an intolerance, whatever reason. All right, we've almost got our second coat on here. I'm gonna start blocking in the leaf bud green too, just to test it out and see how I like it. But I really like this jungle moss. It's a good color for this. I used to mix gray with pine green to get kind of an elven cloak color, like Lord of the Rings kind of color. And this reminds me of that. Not quite the same color, but it's close. So that's a really nice green. And it's working really well with the skin tone as well. Not in, they do fruit ones, but I mean V8 otherwise it's just full of sugar. Like the fruit ones that they do, yuck. I just avoid alcohol at this point. Like, I'll have a sip of David's wine, maybe, if he's ordered something that's interesting that smells good, but I have gluten-free beer for making, but I usually don't drink it. I actually use it for making chili. When I usually, and I use wine in cooking, but I cook off the alcohol. All right, let's do the leaf bud green. And I'm interested to maybe put a little bit of the jungle moss in with it, actually. Yeah, so let's not do that, Mellonir. I know. I did plenty of drinking in my younger days. I don't feel deprived by the fact that I can't do it now. Or choose not to do it now. Technically, I could have a beer every once in a while, but I just don't like it. Don't like to push it. Okay, I'm going to just put a little tiny bit of the jungle moss into this leaf bud green, which is going to shift the leaf bud a little bit darker than it normally is. And I'm going to use that. It's still plenty different from our jungle moss itself. But yeah, I want to test out this color scheme. So I'm going to block in a little bit more of my colors and get an idea. Because this leaf bud green might actually be a little bright for me. We'll see. Although it's hard to find a medium green that doesn't have a degree of vibrancy. At least in mini painting, because everybody likes bright colors. But I could gray it out a little if I had to. All right, I need to pay attention here. That's the same cloth. Really? Like, I find doing NMM on these types of swords to be much easier. You just highlight the bottom edge of the fuller, and you put a shadow down the middle. The narrow ones should be the easiest thing you ever do with NMM. Except maybe chainmail. But just like you see the light fall is how you do it, Mellonir. You just have that shadow on the top, under the top edge. You highlight the bottom edge, and then you do the rest of the sword just like if you did a sword without the fuller. Yeah, I mean, if you just look at how the light is actually falling on it, and then so you throw a piece of card under it. Let's see here. So you've got the top edge is going to be lighter. You've got the shadow that runs down the middle. You've got another highlight on the lower lip of the fuller. And then you've got your shadow on the underside. That light is going to come up on the very bottom of that under reflection. But it's pretty simple. Don't overthink it. No, because not on a 28. If you're doing something really big, like a bust with a sword with a fuller, then different. Then it's different. Then it depends. But most fullers that I've seen on swords are left kind of matte. Like they're not super shiny in there. But, I mean, like more of a brushed steel. But yeah, no, I wouldn't bother with highlights. Don't overthink it. It's a 28mm model. You remember you want to simplify. At this scale, across a field, If this was a person standing across a field and he was that size, you would not see any reflections in the fuller. I doubt you would even see them in somebody standing 20 feet away from you. Oh. Not hydrophobic, because hydrophobic implies that water is a problem, Slayer. Spray varnishes, if it's regular Bones models, like if they're using Bones or Bones Black, it's that the PVC is actually reacting to your solvent. Different varnishes, if you're going to do a sealer on top of a Bones or Bones Black model, I would use a brush-on sealer. Because the aerosol does sometimes, it shouldn't through paint, but apparently it is, so I can't really say. But yeah, hydrophobic means allergic to water, and in a spray sealer, you're not using water. That's solvent. It's all chemical. So hydrophobic is the wrong term. Whoever slung that term at you did not know what it meant and was trying to be impressive. Or they had a misconception of what it meant. But this stuff, Bones USA, should not react that way, and metal definitely won't react that way, and resin won't react that way. Yes, different batches of the same brand or different color, same color, often have different accelerants. Some of those accelerants can leach the hardeners out of the PVC plastic, and that's what you are getting as far as the tackiness goes. I am very surprised that it will do it through a coat of paint. But apparently, yes. So yeah, Slayer. Yes, Reaper Bones, and that's what you're getting, is essentially a reaction with the PVC and the solvent. The accelerant, as they say, or the solvent. For Bones, Inara? Hydrophilic. Thank you. Thank you. So that is why. That's why. That was the miss word. Because everybody's more used to hydrophobic, right? But hydrophilic means water loving. And that is why you can paint straight onto the Bones material. Yeah, so it probably, the chemicals just kind of like penetrated down. Yep. Yeah, so there you go. That's what's happening, Slayer. Hydrophilic is the term you were looking for, but it actually has only to do with how paint sticks to the Bones models, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how why the solvent and or accelerant in a spray product, chemicals, would leach through the paint into the core and pull out PVC elements. But that's what's happening. It actually has made me not seal. Well, okay, I had stopped sealing my models for a while ago, but I don't actually use sealers on any Reaper Bones model unless I do a brush-on sealer. I mean, it's probably not anything particularly worse or better than any other spray Pendrake. It's probably just, it reacts to PVC. PVC is like that. Shadow Raven wants food. Needs food badly, in fact. Yeah, airbrushing is a good way to get around that. Absolutely. But yeah, so hopefully, Slayer, that helps you understand what's going on. Yeah, in general, as Mellonir says, doing an airbrush coat of thus no accelerants or solvents, that helps. Or like I say, I just use a brush-on sealer. I tend to use Reaper, but any brush-on sealer will work, as long as it's not solvent-based. Bones USA, I would say, is what I would go with. This stuff should be fine. But Bones Black is still PVC. So Bones Core, regular Bones, and Bones Black are both PVC. They have different chemical makeups, but they are both PVC. But Bones USA is Cyocast. It's totally different. It's kind of like if PVC and styrene had a love child, except it doesn't. It's actually not PVC, so it doesn't have the same chemical issues. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Mellonir with the knowledge. There you go, folks. Not everything is listed on your ingredient scan. Why am I not surprised? I like this green. I like this color scheme. Yeah. 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 Like it. I do think that if I want to repeat this color, I am going to have to use it on the quiver, though. Oh, yeah. We do the knowledge here, Slayer. Like, that is what we are about, is the knowledge. And, I mean, Valendar is being extremely helpful right now with his knowledge of what's going on, and I also created the Reaper Master Series paint line, so I can answer a lot of paint chemistry stuff as well. So, yes, if you want the knowledge, this is the channel. We are always here every weekday, normally, although I'm taking my birthday off this month, dang it. But normally every weekday, 11:30 USA Central Time to an hour and a half after that. I'm going to try this as the green. I may want to put some leather texture on it later. Try anyway, see what we can do, much as I find that very difficult at this scale. But I want this color repeated. Well, that's how I learned. I just went online and read scientific literature about paint compounds. It's out there. You just got to read it. I was doing that this morning with my pigments thing for my Patreon yesterday afternoon. Reading up about pigments I had never heard of and figuring out why they were used by a paint company. Like, I was puzzled about the toluidine red, but now I think I understand it. I get it. All right, so maybe, yeah, maybe. See, I won't use it here, though, because if I'm going to do a greenish gold, I'm going to want something much darker. I may actually go with black on the back of that shield, actually. More flow improver. The Reaper one particularly, Bryce? Or just in general? But in general, flow improver would dry slightly faster than water since it's not a drying retardant and because it does have compounds in it other than water. So when you add a drop of flow improver, you are adding less water. Slightly. Very slightly. It shouldn't be an accelerated drying time, although you know what? Some flow compounds may do that. Yes, Reaper? Interesting. I haven't noticed that. But certainly my paint dries pretty fast when I'm putting it on the Mini, so maybe. I'd have to go and read some labels. But yeah, it's nice that this color does dry a little darker, Twistedoma, than it looks. And that's true with most acrylic paints. They'll dry just a little darker than they look wet. Unless you're doing a wash, then they're always going to dry lighter than they look wet. So when you thin them a lot, then you will see that difference. Interesting. All right. And now I want to do a little bit more. I guess we're almost to the end of the stream. I guess I shouldn't mix up another color. But okay, so things I've learned right here, right now. I either want to go very dark or very light, probably with the hair or with a contrasting color. So if I went blonde, I would go really blonde, really pale blonde. And if I went, or a contrasting color, we could go red or carrot top, kind of orange color. That would work, absolutely. But I need it to stand out from what's around it. So we can also go black. And do like a colored highlight or do a regular old highlight. I am thinking about making the back of the shield black with the greenish gold tree and metallics, or NMM. Oh, Oh no, lag spike. But yeah, so doing this is giving me information, essentially. Oh, missed a spot. It's kind of giving me an idea of where I want to go. Likewise, since my green here is right up against all this leather, the leather's got to go a bit darker, I think. It's probably got to go darker, and it might go redder as well, because some of this leather is going over his shoulder here. We could go black leather if we really wanted to, or we could go reddish leather if we want that contrast. And we'll have to think about that pretty carefully, because if we go reddish leather, especially if we do the same color leather over everything, there is a lot of that reddish leather, and it's going to pull the eye to down here rather than up here, unless we have something even more red up top to draw the eye. I would not do a dark blonde pendrake, probably because I'm going to be doing kind of a brassy color for the accents on the NMM. I don't want the hair to be too close to that. And also a dark blonde would just go closer to this, like these colors. I want it to be very different. I want to alternate dark and light, remember? So the more different they are, the better. So a dark blonde isn't going to be as different from this color as a pale blonde. And I will go with more contrast every day when it comes to choosing between just a little bit of contrast and a lot of contrast. Always, always. So it's not just color, it's actually light and dark on this model, because it's got a fair amount of layers, right? So the more you can pull those layers apart visually and make it easier for people to see them, the more pleasing the model will be. Oh, Mellonir, I can always depend on you for the bright pink hair. No! Although it's complimentary, so we could do it. It's legal. If you want to paint your angry Link with pink hair, you may. But I'm not going there. Anyway, I'm just trying to like tell you guys kind of how my thinking process is going and why I would be doing this, why I'd be blocking everything in. Especially once if I decide to go, and this is another question. Once I put that really pale green on, like the off-white green, I might decide that I really don't like it down here. Like, I'm kind of thinking about black now for the pants. Because I'm concerned about putting all that light color down here, and the fact that this is also a fairly light green. It's not going to give me enough contrast, right? So, yeah, I'm doing more like an all muted colors, dark light, and lots of greens. So when you're doing, a very monochromatic color scheme, at least right now it is, you need to concentrate on differences between darks and light. Now, one thing we could do is we could do like Lizette. We could make his hair that kind of greenish white and use our pale green white up there, and drop, and maybe there, and drop this to black. Drop all his undergarments to black, and the boots will be brownish leather or reddish leather along with this. We could think about that. So we have some options here, and it's all going to kind of depend on where we want to go with this model. So I am definitely thinking less about going with a lot of that off-white green and more going with some neutrals and blacks. Oh, but since I have my liner here, I'm going to paint the underside of all this in the Do Not Look Here color. Kiki is clicking around, like saying, "Hey, Mom, is it that time yet, Mom?" Yeah, I don't often do like saturation contrast. I don't find it enjoyable unless I'm doing it with accent colors. So like I'll go for a brighter accent color on a muted piece. But that's the exception. Otherwise, I find that I want to stay either muted or saturated. I don't want to be about the same level, which is just my personal, like the color choices you make are very much tied to your style as a painter. Like even if you think you don't have a style, as you become more and more gravitating toward one thing or another, you'll develop one. And things like that, like wanting to use saturated and muted colors together, you can make it work. It's a little more difficult, but it definitely is like a choice that will help define your paint jobs. So that somebody, when they see one of your models, will go, "Oh yeah, that's Mellonir's model." He likes to do that kind of right next to muted thing. But anyway, there we are. And I think we're at the end. I don't want to mix up another color. We'll go back to this and think about all of this when we come back to the model. I'm pretty happy. I'm really happy with the dark green. I love that color. I'm glad we're using it. I might change that. Not happy with that quiver. I might go leather with it. So yeah, we're still thinking, processing. This is what happens when you paint by your gut. In intuitive painting, we'll call it that. Just like intuitive writing, which is what pantsing really is. It's all like going with your gut and learning to trust your gut. Let's see here. So tomorrow, joy. Tomorrow we are back to Miesling. Miesling. The Miesling is going to be getting the last bit of leather. And then we're going to probably do a lot of glazes while I think about changing this color a little bit. Although I don't mind it. I could go brown with the belt and it would be okay. It's just I kind of always envisioned him with a black hat, but maybe he needs a brown hat. Maybe he needs the Indiana Jones instead of the black witch hunter, although it is definitely a witch hunter style hat. He could be rocking the witch hunter Indiana Jones look. Yep, you have a good day too, Slayer. But yeah, we still need to we'll probably work on leather on him tomorrow. Finish the hat, do the belt. If we have time, we can also do the boots a bit, although I'm going to keep them black. And then, yeah, we got to do the blue next, I think. The blue and everything. But yeah, it's a measles. Yep. Measles? Or is he contagious? But yeah, a lot of his other stuff is really come together. So mostly it's the shirt and the jacket and the leather. And then we have to figure out what we're going to do with his basing, if we're going to do anything fun. But yeah, that be the Mies. So we will be here tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. I have to go walk my puppy and work on my cool Red Pigments Patreon thingy. Who's it? Oh, yawn. Yeah, this is the fun size one. I wanted it just because I wanted to paint a fun size one, Mellonir. So he's very chibi. Since he's about the same size as a normal quote-unquote Reaper figure, but he's definitely chibi-ish. So double the normal size of a mouseling. It's fun. I will say, it is definitely a fun size mouseling. I'm actually enjoying having more room to do textures and cool shading and highlighting on this mouseling. And his eyes are really big, so I could do colored irises, and that was fun too. So yeah, so I would say that I'm having a good. These guys were in the store still for sale from when they came out with one of the Bones releases. I don't know if they're still there, but if they are, there's a whole pack of them, and it might be a good pickup. They were not that expensive. It might be a good pickup for practicing textures, you guys, textures and weathering. So, all right, that'll just wrap it there. Quindy, thank you for herding the cats as always, and we will see you guys tomorrow. All right. Off I go walking the pupper. Bye-bye.